Hey, Hawkeye fans, Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register here with Kennington Smith. Welcome back, Kennington.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
Missed you this last weekend, but you didn't miss you didn't miss many fireworks, unfortunately. So we're going to try to drum some up this week as Iowa gets ready to face Illinois. It should be a pretty exciting game, actually. Um, First of all, welcome in, and how was your weekend?
No, my weekend was great. I actually watched the game from Atlanta, so I was tapped in as much as I could be. But it was really fun. Went to a wedding in Atlanta. I was a groomsman. If you've ever heard of the record producer Dallas Austin, some of his credits include Michael Jackson, TLC, Celine Dion. The list goes on and on. My friend married his daughter, so it was like it was a celebrity-ish affair. I mean, he's best friends with P Diddy, so all of Diddy's kids were there. His daughters were in the wedding party. All the alcohol was Ciroc and DeLeon inspired. That's two of Diddy's brands. The after party was at Dallas Austin's house, which is like a $10 million house, and I got to DJ at the after party, which was dope. So that was an experience that doesn't come around every day. So shout out to my friend. He pulled a good one, and the best of luck to them. But it was a great experience, and I'm glad to be back on the beat, and looking forward to this game this weekend.
Yeah, I'm happy for you that number one, you had an awesome time. Number two, you were probably so distracted with that fun, you missed the Georgia crisis against Missouri. They did prevail, so I was happy for you in that sense because I don't think that might have ruined your night. But let's get back to the Hawkeyes here, Kennington. Certainly a lot to discuss. We're coming out of Tuesday press conferences following the Hawkeyes 27-14 loss to Michigan. Now looking ahead to a matchup that certainly is very interesting in terms of the Big Ten West race, and that's where we wanted to start today's kind of three downs. Our first down topic, obviously, has to be really the big news of the week, which is Wisconsin firing head coach Paul Chryst, and that's now two trophy rival coaches fired within weeks of each other of the Hawkeyes, and it sets up such an interesting dynamic, especially when you look to the east and see what Brett Bielema is doing in Illinois. I mean, we're talking about really, arguably, other than Minnesota, I mean, which is, its own story, but like the fiercest rivals have made recent changes in their program, and we're going to see how it all shakes out. And, there's a lot of Hawkeye fans kind of upset with status quo. Will it pay off? That's kind of like where we are right now. It's like you're seeing changes happening everywhere else, yet the Hawkeyes seem to be trucking forward with the same theme. I guess what's your kind of read on the whole, vibe of Nebraska firing Scott Frost, and now all of a sudden Wisconsin abruptly changing directions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I look at both of these schools, I think that both administrations are fully aware and they are standing on, or they're making a statement that I should say that the status quo is not good enough. I think you look at Nebraska, and obviously them having the consecutive losing seasons and the tradition that they've had historically, that was a little bit more of an obvious move that they were going to move off of Scott Frost. When I look at Wisconsin, it's a little bit more of an interesting situation because they have been a solid team under Paul Chryst. I mean, you look at his record, and they've won a lot of games under him, and they've been to the Big Ten championship game under him. But I even look at a program like Wisconsin, and I feel like they have been solid, but that's not good enough for their administration. I mean, I haven't been in Big Ten country very long, and I know I'm a young guy, but I'm old enough to remember when Brett Bielema led them to 3 conference championships in a row. That was only a decade ago. And you look at what they've done recently under Paul Chryst, and he does average 9 wins per year. But I mean, look at what he's done in 4 of the last 5 years. They've been a preseason team 5 consecutive years. They've only finished in the top 25 one time. That's just not good enough for a program like Wisconsin. And I think that they are making a very strong statement that, the 9-ish wins, 8 wins is solid, but it's not good enough for them because they have been at that pinnacle and it really wasn't that long ago. So I think that they're trying to position themselves in what's going to be a new Big Ten. It's going to be harder to win the Big Ten. We don't know what's going to happen with the divisions and everything else. So I think that for both of these schools, it's not just about being viable in the West Division or just making a bowl game. They're looking towards what is it going to take to win a Big Ten championship? What is it going to take to reach a New Year's Six Bowl annually, a college football playoff annually? And what they had in place was not good enough for them. And they're trying to make a move. Like you said, whether it's going to work or not, we don't know. But on the surface, I have to commend those schools for at least taking the step forward and not accepting the status quo.
Yeah, it's so fascinating when you just compare it to Iowa. That's where I'm kind of at with this whole thing, because we know Iowa's not going to make a change. I mean, there's like zero chance, that Kirk Ferentz is getting. I mean, I know that some people out there don't want to hear that, but Kirk Ferentz is not getting fired today or tomorrow for lots of reasons. Namely, that the administration at Iowa, led by Gary Barta, is, patient and sticks through the highs and lows, and that's something Kirk Ferentz discussed today. And obviously, he's going to be of the mindset of wanting to stand pat and fix things and not throw things in the trash. But I understand the frustration that is out there among Iowa fans right now, as the Hawkeyes kind of have looked pretty shaky in this 3-2 start. But going back to Wisconsin, why make the change now? So, like, while we were talking, I got a text from a pretty well-connected person whose opinion I trust, and, talking about the Chryst thing. And it's surprising. But then he wrote, from Wisconsin's perspective, if you feel like you're going backward and there isn't a real path forward, then what are you doing? And so I agree with you there at Kennington that, if, go make that. Jim Leonard is might be the next guy. Who knows? And maybe they're opening a path for Urban Meyer. Who knows? I mean, they've got to have a plan in place, to do this. And I do feel like you have to. Wisconsin's a great college town. It's a much bigger recruiting base than Iowa. They're pretty close to Chicago too. They've got a good history. I mean, heck, Brett Bielema won 3 Big Ten titles there, back-to-back years. Not too long ago, I went to the Rose Bowl. So that's a program that I think can make a splash higher. And then at the same time, I don't think Iowa's at that point. I mean, I think Iowa is waiting this through, and there's still 7 games left to play, one of which we're going to be talking about a lot here momentarily. But I don't know. It's just, I just find it to be an interesting dynamic right now. And I'm kind of putting words to paper after this podcast is over about that topic. So that column will probably be up tomorrow. But I don't know. I just the temperature is so crazy right now out there. And I see a lot of people ready to kind of move on. And I think part of it, Kennington, is just the brand of offense, the lack of excitement that's out there. Kirk Ferentz said it today, and I'm sorry I'm rambling here, but my thoughts are kind of all over the board. But Kirk Ferentz said today, it's like we're basically in the entertainment business now. That's what he said, and we've heard Brian Ferentz say that before too. Like college football is basically the entertainment business now, and so that's kind of where I have a little bit of a disconnect with Ferentz. Is you say that, but your brand of football is not entertaining whatsoever. In fact, of the 20 quarters we've seen of Hawkeye football this year, has there been one that's been entertaining? Seriously? Like, I'm not even kidding. Maybe the second quarter against Rutgers. I mean, maybe, but not really.
Right.
0 for 20.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about offensive excitement, definitely not many quarters. Maybe the last part of the third quarter or the fourth quarter of Michigan, where it looked like they were going to make a close game out of it. I mean, the defense obviously gives exciting moments all the time, and special teams as well. But offensively, I agree with you there. And when you talk about exciting, when you talk about entertainment, that's where recruiting comes into play. And I feel like Iowa's always going to be a program that is going to be able to recruit offensive linemen and use inside ends for the most part because of their pedigree. But when you're talking about quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, those are the positions where if you don't have a certain wow factor or a winning pedigree at the highest level, it's going to be hard to attract those type of elite talents into your program. I mean, you look at a program like Wisconsin, I wouldn't call their brand of football offensively exciting. They're very similar to Iowa, but they just do it at the highest level. And they've had that winning pedigree, which is partly why they were able to get a 5-star like Graham Mertz to commit in the first place. And I think that his lack of development in the offense moving back was probably the last nail in Paul Chryst coffin. But at least they have that type of recruiting reach where they can get somebody that highly touted to come into their program. I think that's kind of where the disconnect is with Iowa right now, is that they haven't offensively shown a proven track record of developing skill positions, putting them into the NFL. And when you don't do that, and when you don't have an exciting brand of offense in this era now where all the games are on TV and recruits can see everything, and they're being negatively recruited and they're seeing all the tweets and everything that's happening on Twitter, it's going to be hard to get those kids into the program. So I think for the fans, the move to move off of Kirk is probably like super drastic. And I don't think a large part of the fan base is leaning in that direction. But if, Iowa goes into the offseason and they're not active in the transfer portal, there's not wholesale changes offensively, it's going to be a hard sell to get fans to reinvest into the program. You said it today in your column that Iowa sold out this season. There was a lot of interest. There was a lot of excitement. They're coming off a Big Ten West title. There are a lot of talks about improvements on offense and tweaking and changing, and this could be a team that was positioned to win into the future. And I know I'm rambling a little bit now, and we're going to get into Illinois, on tomorrow's radio show, but this very much is kind of like the benchmark for the season. And they'll win. You might have a chance, in the Big Ten West, and lose. Then this could really kind of tailspin quickly. It's going to be a hard sell to reel the fans back in after this year if there's not wholesale changes made.
Yeah, you made an outstanding point on recruiting. And I think that is that's the name of the game. That's the name of the game right now. And Iowa does a good job of it also on defense. I mean, defensively, they've pulled in a lot of good players. A lot of times they're locally grown type players, think about Jack Campbell, Cooper DeJean, Locus Van Ness is from the Chicago suburbs. I mean, you're getting them from around here. AJ Epinesa was a great example. I mean, obviously a legacy recruit there, but not that far away. So, yeah, can you pull in the skill position on offense? And there's just not that level of talent around here typically, not in robust numbers. And now you've got PJ Fleck, who say what you will about him, but he is a very, very active recruiting. And I think that's kind of where Nebraska started losing momentum, was Frost's appeal really waned. And then, I mean, is there anybody less exciting in the world of college football than Paul Chryst in his sweatshirt and just kind of sitting there on the side, and he doesn't look like he's doing anything? That's not exciting. But Jim Leonard, he might be exciting, or whoever they bring in next, Right. And then we'll see who Nebraska brings in. And Brett Bielema, he's very passionate about recruiting. So really hit it on the head there, Kennington. I think that's a thought that's going to carry with me as I write this column and kind of through the rest of the season. All right, we've went past our allotted 10 minutes on that. We're going to talk more probably about that on the radio show tomorrow, and believe me, this will be an ongoing topic all season long, especially if Iowa loses on Saturday. But let's move on to our second down topic, Kennington. And I think the talking point after the game, I know you weren't at the press conference, Saturday night, but was that Kirk Ferentz saw progress on offense. And I think a lot of people scoffed at that in a 27-14 loss where you had 90 yards of offense late in the third quarter. We heard more of that today. And I guess, where are you at in terms of, what they've seen on film versus what the reality is? I know you watched the game. What were your thoughts, I guess, with the offense and what you heard today?
Yeah, I mean, I also was scratching my head a bit about the comments about the offense taking a step forward. I think that Iowa did a very good job of seizing and capitalizing on some momentum late in that game, and that kind of propelled them forward. But you wrote about this in DVR Monday. There was offensive progress, but then you still, in the midst of what seemed to be a good run for the offense, there was still the clunkiness on the goal line and those 3 plays where they couldn't punch it in and really make a game of it at that point. By the time that they scored, again, late in the fourth quarter, I mean, it felt like by all intents and purposes, the game was over at that point. And I think that fans are looking for a higher sense of urgency from the offense and more consistency throughout the game instead of, 3-and-outs, penalties that are derailing drives, not putting drives together, missed opportunities, overthrows, all of those things, missed blocks, and then somehow they just put it together for 2 drives at the end of the game, and then you call that progress. So for me, what I'm looking for is just consistency from start to finish, and they've shown that a little bit at times, but especially moving forward into Big Ten West play is going to be critical to really put together cohesive game plans and consistency from start to finish. And that starts this Saturday with Illinois, who is going to put together a game plan that's going to challenge Iowa's offensive line. I think that's where the biggest concern is right now on the team in terms of their growth and development. They're going to be put to a great test on Saturday. And I feel like that's probably where I would like to see the most growth and maybe point to as like tangible evidence for this offensive progress.
So during the interviews today, brought up a bunch of statistics to Spencer Petras, and then he had the quote from one of his professors or whatever, stats are for losers. So it was kind of a fun little back and forth. And I was a statistics major in college, so I was like, oh, so you're calling me a loser? But anyway, I do have some stats that are at least that paint a couple different pictures here, and I thought that they'd both be productive to talk about with this offense, because to me, these are the most alarming stats other than the yardage. We know they're next to last in the country in yardage right now, but the snap counts are so low right now. You look at these are their snaps by game this year: 61, 52, 61, 55, and 55. Those are such low play count numbers that you're not getting the opportunities that you need. And that's lack of getting lots of third down conversions, that, all that stuff that goes with a good offense to have a big offensive day, have a day where you're keeping your defense off the field. So especially when Brian Ferentz in the offseason talked about, our average typically is very consistent, 68 plays a game. Like we're talking like 13, 10 to 15 plays below that every game. Like you cannot survive. And that's why I think you're also seeing the defense, show just a couple little cracks. We're going to get to the defense next, but that's what needs to get up Kennington. They need to hog the ball a little bit. They need to have longer drives and longer possessions, and they're close, but then you get the overthrow, then you get the penalties. That's something Kirk Ferentz talked about a lot in the post game as well. I guess I think we're both on the same page here. It's not good enough, but I think our bar is pretty low. I did see signs of progress, and I'm going to get to one in a second here on Petras. But how do you get the play counts up beyond the obvious of offense being better?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound potentially crazy to say, but it's almost going to take near perfect execution on every play. I mean, this is an offense, and I wrote about this last Friday leading up to Michigan, that a negative play on first down almost kills the drive every single time, whether that's via negative play or by penalty. And then to that point, I texted you this before, the Michigan game that Iowa's this season is averaging 4.8 plays per possession. And that correlates to the fact that they're 12th in time of possession. You go back to that Rutgers game, and a lot of the times where they were 1 for 9 on third down, a lot of the times they weren't converting was because they had so many negative plays and negative results on first down, whether that be a holding or an illegal formation or a sack or something like that sets the offense back. And then, from there, it's really hard for them to get back into a rhythm. So they're going to have to stay in front of the chains almost every possession. That's going to take perfect execution offensively. And they're going to have to eliminate mistakes. I know that sounds like the most ideal utopian type of solution, like never have a negative play on first down, never have any penalties or mistakes. But with the scheme that Iowa's running right now, and the youth along the offensive line and the uncertainty everywhere else, it's almost going to take that type of effort. And that's especially important for this Saturday, because while Iowa's 12th in time of possession, Illinois is the number 2 team in the Big Ten in time of possession at almost 35 minutes per game. So if Iowa is not sustaining drives and they give it to Illinois, not only are they going to be able to have success offensively because they are a more balanced attack than they have been in years past, but they know how to hold the ball and keep an offense off of the field as well, which is bad news for Iowa's offense and obviously bad news for the defense as well.
Yeah, great point. Great points across the board. And it sounds like, or it looks like, based on Illinois' scouting report, that Iowa's going to have to, this is definitely attacking type of Illinois defense that's going to be going for, stuffing the run like crazy. So Iowa's going to have to throw the ball to win this game. There's no question about it, because Illinois is going to dare them to throw the ball. And that's exactly what they did to Wisconsin. Lots of run blitzes, held them to 2 yards rushing, and said, Graham Mertz, you come beat us. And obviously couldn't do it. And so can Spencer Petras do that? Now I'm going to give you, I told you the negative stats. Here's the positive stats. And I sent this to my text group. Spencer Petras has started 24 games in his Iowa career. 2 of his top 5 yards per attempt games have included the last 2 weeks. All right. So it's number 1 all time at Iowa was Colorado State last year. That was the game he threw a couple deep shots to Keegan Johnson, inflated that number. The number 2 game in yards per attempt was actually Rutgers last week. That was a game where very, very efficient for the most part, got a deep shot to Laporta, hit some kind of chunk plays to Lachey in there as well. Number 3 was Maryland last year. You recall that game. That was one of the best games we've seen from this offense. 4 was Wisconsin 2020. That was the home game in which he had Emir Smith-Marset, a couple deep shots. And then number 5 was Michigan this past game, 7.94 yards per attempt. So my windup is, okay, maybe you don't want to say that that's a sign of anything, but you can at least acknowledge the fact that we're not talking about an offense averaging 2 or 3 yards of play like they were the first 2 weeks. You're seeing at least chunk plays come about. You're seeing healthier guys at receiver come about. All I'm saying is put the game on Petras' shoulders this week. Illinois is going to be run blitzing like crazy. I am not confident Iowa can run the ball with this offense. I think you're going to have to air it out. And he said that himself. Take some deep shots. Spencer's strength with his arm is the deep ball. He just has to have a little time to throw it, and they play a lot of man coverage. So that's what I'm saying. That's where I'm at with this offense. And if you want a little excitement, let's see a little bit more air Hawkeyes, I guess, this Saturday. I think that's their best path to victory. And I think they maybe unlock that just a little bit in that fourth quarter. Maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, tight ends had a strong day. Luke Lachey and Sam Laporta seemed like these last 2 weeks, they've really started to become a focal point in the offense, and it's led to some positive results. Brody Brecht seems to be, fully immersed in what's going on. His snap count is increasing. Nico Ragaini had a good game against Michigan, and it seems like he's starting to get healthier as well. I believe this is going to be his 3rd game back. And then Arlen Bruce has been the one constant on this team from a receiving standpoint, pretty much from the bowl game to now. And I have a story about him that's live today. But I feel like in terms of targets, where the philosophy to get him the ball in the first few games, they've really gone away from that in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I feel like he is one of the premier weapons on the team. I would like to see him in motion. I would like to see him get a lot more opportunities. And for Spencer, his ball placement has been on par these last few weeks. I would try to try Illinois deep. Even if you don't complete the pass, there might be a potential for drawing a flag or anything like that, just to do something to get that pressure off of the offensive line, and maybe you can run the ball from there. So I would agree with you. They really need to put it on Petras' shoulders, and that might scare fans. But at the end of the day, he is a 5th-year guy. He's in his 3rd year starting. I feel like it's not too much to put that on your senior quarterback on the road in a must-win game that you have to have.
Yeah, he was the top rated Hawkeye player on offense or defense against Rutgers by PFF, and he was number 2, only behind Luke Lachey against Michigan. So again, you don't have to. I'm not trying to tell you guys that he's playing great or anything like that, but at least you see signs that maybe there's something there. And right now you're kind of grasping the straws on offense. So that's where we are. Okay, Kennington, we ran a little long on these first couple. Let's kind of slam this one in here. Third down. Is the defense being too hard on itself? We've talked a lot about the offensive struggles. Dargan and I, in our post-game podcast on Saturday, we weren't like real kind with the defense. I thought the defense played pretty poorly against Michigan. That said, Michigan looked really good, and I think we have to give them credit. I mean, if this was – I kind of thought about this today, Kennington, especially because I know, where your allegiance lies with Georgia. Like if Georgia had come into Kinnick Stadium and had 20 points with a minute and change left in the game, even though they kind of moved up the field pretty consistently throughout, maybe Hawkeye fans wouldn't feel the same. I felt like – I don't know. I guess you answer. Is the defense being too hard on itself?
I think from the outside looking in, I feel like they are being a bit hard on themselves because Michigan's an offense that averages 50 points a game, and they got held to effectively 20. They scored at the very end. They gave up the touchdown at the beginning, and they were pretty much held in check points-wise until the very end when they scored that last touchdown. So from that regard, I feel like they are being a bit hard on themselves, but I think that it's on one end how high their standard is, and then on the other end, I believe that there is a sense from the players of responsibility to try to keep the score as low as possible because that is how Iowa is going to win these games. I mean, we've said it ad nauseum, especially early in the season. 7 to 10 point deficit feels almost insurmountable for this offense. The defense has to not only keep the score low, but maybe even potentially score points themselves or set the offense up for scoring opportunities for them to have a chance. They didn't force any turnovers on Saturday. Michigan stayed ahead of the sticks the whole time and really kind of controlled the pace of the game. So, I feel like they are being a bit hard on themselves, but I do think that, from their point of view, they're looking at it from the lens of if we don't do those things that I just outlined, they're not going to have a chance to win the game. So I'm not mad at them for having that type of mentality. I think they just understand, this is the situation that they're in, and they're holding themselves to that high standard to give their team a chance.
Yeah, Jack Campbell, talked to him a little bit today. He had, probably one of not his best game he's ever had. I know he got kind of fooled on that late run. He talked about today, like, my eyes got kind of lost sometimes and I think the nice thing or bad thing, depending how you look at it, for Iowa is they're going to see a lot of the similar type of a heavy run game attack approach with a quarterback that can do some things. So it's another very similar challenge. They've got a really good offensive line at Illinois, the nation's leading rusher in Chase Brown. But I think the one edge where Iowa one thing that Iowa has going for it is that they were so worried. The Hawkeyes were so worried about Ronnie Bell and all the weapons Michigan had on the edge and a quarterback that could hurt them, as they really didn't devote enough resources to the run game until it was too late. So I think my feeling is, Kennington, that they will maybe pull another safety into the box and just say, hey, if you want to try to throw on Terry Roberts and Cooper DeJean and Riley Moss, good luck. I mean, we'll take our chances there. I don't think Illinois quite has the Ronnie Bell level of talent on the edge that Michigan did. Maybe you see it differently, but I think I could see Iowa putting a little bit more energy into the box this week and trying to make Illinois beat the Hawkeyes through the air, because that's where Iowa's bread and butter is those turnovers. And they can't create them when they're just giving up 5-6 yards every time with a run. You're on mute.
Excuse
me.
There you go. Yeah. I was saying,
I was on mute telling you were on mute. So there you
go. That's that rust about, missing a game. I'm leaving myself on mute. But I would agree with you, just being more willing to maybe devote those resources earlier on before the team gets down. And looking at the the defense and talking to players today, the Noah Shannons and the Logan Lees along the defensive line, I feel like the defensive line is taking what happened against Michigan very personally. Iowa is a defense that is predicated on establishing the line of scrimmage up front so they can kind of take the pressure off of the back end to provide so much support in the run game. And Michigan dominated the line of scrimmage. They're pushing Iowa's defensive line back, which kind of forced Iowa to devote some more resources. But at that point, they were losing and all of those things. So I think that the defensive line is really kind of like looking themselves in the mirror and wanting to have a better game along the line, shedding those blocks, not allowing the offensive lineman to kind of turn them around and put Iowa's linebackers in a position to where they're going to have to make split decisions in the gaps on how to fill those type of things. So, Noah Shannon said today that the defense's energy was really lively these last few days, that they are feeling, renewed sense of energy, and they're taking what happened personally and they're flying around to the ball, and they want to have a better showing than what they showed against Michigan. So, I'm going to be really interested to see how the defense comes out and performs, and Phil Parker's game plan against Illinois' offense, to your point, is balanced and more balanced than they have been, but they don't have the same caliber of athletes that Michigan has. So I'll be interested to see how they try to play them and stop the rushing attack.
Great stuff. Super busy week for my colleague Kennington Smith and I of the Des Moines Register. Got Iowa Basketball Media Day tomorrow, of all things, in the middle of all this. We got to travel this week as well. So thanks for sticking with us at HawkCentral.com with our Hawk Central YouTube podcast. Make sure to check our radio show out tomorrow night on KXNO. I think it's 6 to 6:45 tomorrow night, and then we will get you a bonus podcast segment after Iowa Basketball Media Day attached to that file. So look for a longer program tomorrow night. So lots of Hawkeye stuff coming straight ahead. Kennington, glad to have you back, my friend, and thanks, Hawkeye fans, for being out there, sticking with us through thick and thin, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.